I'm Melissa Idris.
And I'm Sharat Kutan.
You're watching Consider This, the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Now, let's start with news that UMNO Deputy President Muhammad Hassan has called on Party President Zaid Hamidi to provide a clear direction on cooperation with Bersatu. Now, if I may quote Tok Mat, he said, "A firm political consensus must be developed to calm the concerns, dissatisfaction and anger of members over the way UMNO was treated in Sabah." Now, according to Tok Mat, the results of last Saturday's Sabah election showed that UMNO's strategy for this political cooperation did not benefit the party in any way. What do you think, Sharad?
Melissa, it's very interesting because when you look at what happened in Sabah, maybe the casual outsider might think, well, both parties won. I mean, in some sense, they stole the government of the day from, or took it away through an election from the government of the day, from Warisan, and they were the winners, right? The question of who became the chief minister aside, it seemed like a cooperation that actually benefited both sides. But the analysis coming from the deputy president, it's quite different, and I think that's something worth thinking about.
Yes, I thought this was particularly interesting because, again, we've spoken to many political analysts on the show, and, they talk often about the divisions in UMNO, the different factions within UMNO seems to be an open secret in the political landscape. But what this signals to me is kind of an opening up of what's happening behind party doors, an airing of dirty laundry, if I may.
Yeah, but okay, so there is the question of the internal factions, I agree, but it's really about UMNO's relationship to Bersatu in particular, and Perikatan Nasional. And if you look at the longer statement, it goes on to talk about the need perhaps of UMNO to go ahead along with Muafakat Nasional, which is because the UMNO PAS relationship, and in some sense to abandon Perikatan.
Right.
Now, we know that there have been growing pains within this large coalition. We saw it in Johor, where the Bersatu folks felt that they were at the, receiving, they received the short end of the stick, as it were, and lost control of that state. But then, UMNO loyalists will say, actually, when you look at the overall picture, UMNO has lost almost consistently to Bersatu. So that seems to be the rub, right? And this was Bersatu being in many ways, Melissa, those who were disloyal to UMNO, who left UMNO,
yes.
who in fact chided UMNO for its corruption and so on and so
right,
forth.
yes.
So why are they now being rewarded, I think is the question they ask themselves.
Well, in response to this statement, UMNO President Zaid Hamidi has promised a comprehensive post-mortem report. Apparently, he says that party leadership will be discussing this. I'm very curious to see how this cooperation will go forward. How will they be selling this to UMNO grassroots following Sabah?
Yeah, and also, what is interesting in his statement, the statement of the Deputy President, that is that they said, we mustn't look back at the Sheraton move with nostalgia. That was a moment.
That was true, yes.
Yeah, it was a moment that came, it brought them back to power, and of course, so much has happened as a consequence of them coming back to power. Now they have to look forward. What is the future? Is this the future which includes their partners in the Sheraton move, or does it exclude them?
All right, well, let's move on to other news. We have some 600 students from SK Pematang Janggus in Penang have had to get swab tested and were placed under quarantine after a teacher was found positive for COVID-19. It's understood that the teacher accompanied her politician husband to Sabah recently and that the teacher had fallen ill while at school before being sent for treatment at a hospital in Kedah. Now, the Penang Education Department has had to close the school for 8 days. I'm not sure yet, Ashrad, why she was in fact at school in the first place and not at home or quarantine when she was clearly symptomatic. We're still waiting for the details to be revealed or to be discussed.
I think, Melissa, today on social media, there's a lot of anger about what's transpired following the Sabah elections. people, depending on their own political orientation, are either blaming the fact that Musa Aman had his charges dropped and therefore unleashing a string of events leading to the election. Some would, of course, blame Shafi Abdal, saying, why didn't he yield to Musa Aman's numbers and instead of dissolving the state assembly?
How far back you want to go,
Yes, how far back you want to go. Now, what kind of political frame you want to put on this?
Right.
But the question is, of course, in managing this particular election, because we know elections have happened across the world despite the pandemic, and they can happen in a reasonably safe way. There's been some lax attitudes towards the SOPs. There's been some mixed messages coming from government. I think today, much debated over the last couple of days, is the quarantine.
Yes.
Whether you should be quarantined even if you get a negative result at the airport.
Well, politicians returning from Sabah, as you said, have kind of created some chaos, if I may, not just in Penang, but in Malacca. We had the Malacca State Administration Complex being shut down after Ailima Assembly person tested positive there. So Amiruddin Yusof tested positive after campaigning in Sabah. But what happened was he had been initially given a negative result and then was allowed to end his quarantine. And then when one of his stops was to go to this complex for a drink at the cafeteria, following which when he returned home, he found that there was a mix-up and he was actually COVID positive. So then the entire complex had to be closed for sanitation.
Yeah, and because there's a question of how tests work and,
right.
And false negatives and false positives. And we know from the Sivaganga cluster that, the center that also tested initially negative. So, I think this is not just, a question of the politicians failing us. And of course, people are asking, where is our Minister of Health and his two deputies? They seem conspicuously absent from the conversation. But also with the DG of Health, he's also come for some criticism for perhaps acceding to the desires of politicians to be much more lax in terms of the quarantine issue.
All right, we're going to keep a very close eye on the developments of COVID-19 in the country. But after this, we will be discussing the Selangor State Government's proposed plan to degazette the Kuala Langat Forest Reserve. That's all coming up in just a couple of minutes. Stay tuned to consider this. You're watching Consider This. I'm Melissa Idris. With me is Sharad Kutan. Now, earlier this week, the Selangor State Government held a town hall to get public feedback on the plan to degazette the Kuala Langat Forest Reserve. The proposal is actually to degazette 2,400 acres of the forest reserve to make way for mixed development. Now, we've reached out to the Selangor State Government and its representatives to explain why they're championing this move to degazette the forest reserve, but they were not responsive to the Consider This team. However, we will continue to attempt to get their side of the story. Tonight, we will be speaking to those who are making the argument against the move to degazette. Shakila Zen is the media officer for the environmental group Persatuan Aktivis Sahabat Alam, or better known as Kuasa. Shakila, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight. Now, I understand you were at the town hall on Tuesday. I want to begin with asking what stood out for you in terms of the feedback testimony that were given from the attendees.
All right, thank you, Melissa and Sharad, and also AWANI to invite me to this Consider This. Actually, we from Kuasa always advocating for the environmental democracy, which is we believe in public hearing before some state government or some project to be held in any state. So I was participating because we get the invitation from our coalition. We call as Coalition for Selangor Forest, but it's actually everyone from that coalition get backdated invitation, or we get the invitation less than 14 days, which is I think it's very improper from state government and from forestry, Selangor Forestry to give us the short notice for attending the town hall. And
Shakila, do you think,
yeah.
I mean, because of the short notice, and I think that also the distance of the town hall from where the Orang Asli community is located, do you feel, or was there a feeling that the government of Selangor is not sincere in wanting this feedback?
okay, for me myself, I think they are not sincere. And this town hall is actually held for 3 days, which is from 28th to 30th of September. And YBC, who conducted this town hall, said on the 28th, just one person show up, and they have to cancel the whole town hall because they have no enough participation. And this is make us as NGO and from Orang Asli community or villages feel very angry and hurt. And because we received around 47,000 petitions online, 11,000 emails, and even 1,000 written objections to state government. But only 80% was invited to the first public hearing or the town hall. So
All right.
I think this is not something to do, or you have to cater everyone who objected this degazzetment.
Shakila, when you were there
Yeah.
at the town hall, did you see testimony given that reflected the 47,000 signatures for the online petition?
On the second day, which is Orang Asli and NGO are invited, I see a lot of us, or I can say, or I believe, everyone in that hall is opposing that degazzetment. And after I myself from Kuala, and we collaborated with kami, I give the information to the kami team, which is Climate Action Malaysia, and they have live update that event on Instagram. Instagram and Twitter. And I saw everyone is tweeting that, retweeting that, and said
True.
they're concerned about that degazzetment.
I know that there has been a lot of objections to the proposal to degazette the forest reserve. Shakila, was there anyone at the town hall that was in support of degazetting?
I believe no one is supporting that degazzetment, unless I think it came from the Selangor state government and some of the agencies. Or even Jabatan Perhutanan Semenanjung Malaysia has objected this proposal, and even some companies around that area they don't agree with this degazzetment.
Okay.
Shakila, I understand that the former state environment minister was there, Elizabeth Wong. She also spoke out again. Could you tell us if you could just give us a sense of what were the arguments being made from the floor against the degazettement? What kind of arguments were being made?
Okay, because on February 2020, earlier when this degazzetment thing is rise up on social media, the YB, the MB right now is the MB of Selangor just stated that this forest has like 40%, and they always have bushfire there, and I think YB Elizabeth said they have like one system to avoid that bushfire and like wildfire there, and she said that when she was an expo there in Selangor, they have handled that cases very well. And I think after 2014, they have no reported cases of fire on that reserve area.
Okay, Shakila, I understand all the arguments against it. Now, coming back to the question of the sincerity of the Selangor state government, do you think that with all the negative feedback they're getting, will they still go ahead with the degazettement? And if so, what will you and the activist community do in response to the Selangor state government continuing with this plan?
If they do.
All right. Okay. On that town hall, the YBC said they don't have that the results, so they have to discuss first to come up with the result. But this is like a complete conflict of interest when who proposed that degazzetment is from MBI Incorporation, which is from MB side, and the one who have the right to degazette this this forest reserve is also MB. So I think this is like they have like conflict of interest there, and me myself as someone go to that public hearing, that town hall, I think there's still 50-50 from the state government, and if they go and they still do the degazzetment, I think we from the coalition of NGO will still fight and object this thing, because this forest is very very important to our OA community.
All right. Thank you so much, Shakila, for joining us on the show tonight and sharing with us your observations from last Tuesday's town hall. Thank you. We're going to take a quick break here on Consider This. We'll be back with more on this topic, so stay tuned. Thank you so much for staying with us on Consider This. I'm Melissa Idris, with me Sharad Kutan. Let's continue our conversation on the Selangor State Government's proposed plan to degazette the Kuala Langat Forest Reserve following the public feedback session on Tuesday. Joining us now, we have Professor Ahmad Ismail, President of the Malaysian Nature Society. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight. I would like you to help us understand the importance of the Kuala Langat Forest Reserve. Why is it imperative that we protect this forest reserve?
Why? Sorry, I'm not very clear.
What is the importance of the Kuala Langat Forest Reserve? Why must we protect it?
Okay, there are a few things that we need to address for this Kuala Langat North Forest Reserve. Number one is a unique forest, and then part of it is a peat swamp forest. So peat swamp forest is very important, and we need to preserve it. And when we're talking about carbon stock and then so on, we have to keep it. Number two, for Selangor, they must have a declaration how many percent that they want to keep the forest for the country. So as what we agree at the federal level, at the federal level, Malaysia agree with the international treaty, whatever agreement, they want to keep a certain percentage of forest. So not only forest, but we have to look at what kind of forest. So how much peat swamp forest that we have in Selangor that we need to conserve or protect. So this is important. Why Kuala Langat North Forest Reserve is very important to be protected, to be conserved. Besides, we have some important like wildlife and important for the local people there.
Ahmad, what would we lose if we destroyed this forest? If the Selangor State Government has its way and they push through this degazzettement and there's mixed development, they pour concrete over all this this area, what will we lose?
No, we will lose the peat swamp forest. This is very important. We need to keep it. And you know the peat swamp forest, we have how big, how much carbon we have there. I don't have the right figures there, and we need to do more study to answer that. And in general, we know the peat swamp values that we need to protect and preserve. Then we might lose it. Another thing is the education and research. So these values need to be continued for the future generation. If we change into the concrete of building or whatever, we lost the area, we don't understand for the future generation. We are talking about climate change. We are talking about carbon stock. That one, if we don't do it now, we don't keep it now, in the future we cannot talk. And we have to face the challenge or the issues of climate change in the future.
What, in terms of quality of life, because I don't know if the argument is something that's understood widely, will we see a deterioration in our quality of life across the state of Selangor in adjoining states if we go ahead with this plan?
It depends on how you look or value the quality of life. If we now talking about climate change, we are talking about global warming, the increase of temperature, we lost our unique biodiversity. So if that is, we don't have the values, it's very difficult to answer. Malaysia is top 12 mega biodiversity in the world. So what is our values there? If we are the high rank of world biodiversity country, so if public cannot value this value, I cannot answer your question, because we have to understand this. And then when we talk about climate change, we talk about carbon stock, we talk about uniqueness of the big swamp forest, we talk about biodiversity. So we have to protect the forest. That's what I can say from the Malaysian Nature Society point of view.
Well, if I may, so the Selangor Menteri Besar Amruddin Shari, he claims that this part of the forest, this forest is actually of little value because he claims the trees had become, to quote him, degraded, and he wants to the state to replace these degazzetted reserve with better quality forests. Does that make sense to you?
No, the issue of replace. If the forest is degraded, we have to replant the tree. We have to replant it. We have to improve the area, not degrade it. I think if we develop around the area, the forest that we can keep today will give a certain values in the future. So this is what public will see later. Now they don't see it. Maybe they don't see it if they don't understand and they don't feel it. But if they understand the future, they will keep the forest. Degradation of the forest cannot be an issue, because we can restore it. We can put more trees there, but the values of the trees and the underground is very high.
Ahmad, you've been following the story for some time. In terms of what you hear reported coming from the state government and its representatives, what concerns you most about how they are informing or perhaps misinforming the public about what's actually going on?
I always say Selangor is one of the developed states in Malaysia. So I think there are many universities in Selangor, many good people in Selangor. By now, they should be able to explain to the public what's the importance of this swamp, what's the importance of forest reserve, why we need to keep the forest. I think that question, they should answer it by themselves, because if they think they are in front from other states, and there are many other industries that already developed, there are many other opportunities to make money for the state, but they have to be more creative, not just cutting the forest.
Okay, having said that, do you think that the Selangor state government will go ahead with degazzetting this forest reserve?
I don't know if they respect the community, the local community, from the town hall the other day. That day, I think the public don't agree, the NGO don't agree. I think nobody said yes to the town hall. And then the ESCO should bring this matter up, and they should debate in the Dewan Undangan Negeri, so that everybody knows. Because this is not the issue of Kuala Langat, this is the issue of state of Selangor and the issue of maybe the Peninsular Malaysia. So,
but what if the Selangor state government goes ahead with this proposal? What will the Malaysian Nature Society do?
They should respect the community. Otherwise, you talk about democratic country, you don't respect the community. It's unfair.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ahmad, for speaking with us tonight. We really appreciate your time and you sharing your insights. That's all the time we have for you on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melissa Idris.
And I'm Sharad Kutan, signing off for the evening.
Thank you so much for watching, and good night.